Scripture portions of the day. Day 68.
Luke 15, OANT. But tax collectors and sinners were approaching to hear him. And the scribes and the Pharisees were complaining, and they were saying, "This one receives sinners, and he eats with them." And Yeshua told them this parable. "What man among you has 100 sheep, and if one of them should be lost, would not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go seek that one which is lost until he would find it? And whenever he had found it, he rejoices, and carried it on his shoulders. And he comes to his house, and calls his friends and his neighbors, and he says to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you, there shall be joy like this in heaven over one sinner who returns home, more than over 99 righteous ones who do not need a home welcoming. And who is the woman who has 10 quarter shekels, and will lose one of them, and does not light a lamp, and sweep the house, and search for it carefully until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls her friends and her neighbors, and she says to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my quarter shekel that was lost.' For I say to you, there will be joy like this before the angels of God over one sinner who returns home." And Yeshua said to them again, "One man has 2 sons, and his younger son said to him, 'My father, give me the portion that befalls me for your estate.' Then he provided them his wealth. And after a few days his younger son gathered everything that was coming to him, and he went to a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth, while living wastefully. And when he had spent everything that he had, there was a great famine in that country, and he began to be wanting. And he joined himself to the one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to a field to herd pigs. And he longed to fill his belly from carob pods that the pigs were eating, and no man was giving anything to him. And when he came to himself, he said, 'Now many hired servants are in my father's house, who have plenteous bread for themselves, and here I am dying with hunger. I shall arise to go to my father and say to him, My father, I have sinned towards heaven and before you. Now I am not worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants.' And rising, he came to his father, and while he was still distant, his father saw him, and he was moved with compassion for him, and he ran and fell on his neck, and he kissed him. And his son said to him, 'My father, I have sinned towards heaven and before you. I am not worthy that I should be called your son.' But his father said to his servants, 'Bring the best robe, and clothe him, and put a ring on his hand, and put shoes on him. Bring and kill the fatted ox. Let us eat and celebrate. Because this my son was dead, and he is alive. He was lost, and now he is found.' And they began to celebrate. But his older son was in the field, and as he came, he approached the house, and he heard the sound of many people singing. He called one of the boys, and he asked him, 'What is this?' And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened ox, because he has received him well.' And when he was angry, he did not want to enter, and his father went out, pleading with him. But he said to his father, 'Behold, I have served you for many years of servitude, and I have never transgressed your command, and you never gave me a goat to me, that I may celebrate with my friends. But when his young son, who had wasted your money with whores, has come back, you killed him the fatted ox.' His father said to him, 'My son, you are always with me, and everything that I have is yours. But it is right for us to celebrate and to rejoice, for this your brother was dead. He is alive. He was lost. He is found.'" Genesis 43, Septuagint. But the famine prevailed in the land. And it came to pass, when they had finished eating the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, that their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." And Judah spoke to him, saying, "The man, the lord of the country, positively testified to us, saying, You shall not see my face unless your younger brother be with you. If then thou send your brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou send not our brother with us, we will not go. For the man spoke to us, saying, You shall not see my face, unless your brother be with you. And Israel said, Why did you harm me, insomuch as ye told the man that ye had a brother? And they said, The man closely questioned us about our family also, saying, Does your family yet live? And have ye a brother? And ye answered him according to his question. But we know that he would say to us, Bring your brother. And Judah said to his father Israel, Send the boy with me, and we will rise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou and our store. And I engage him at my hand, do thou require him. If I bring him not to thee, and place him before thee, I shall be guilty to thee forever. For if we had not tarried, we should not have returned twice. And Israel their father said to them, If it be so, do this, take of the fruits of the earth in our vessels, and carry down the man presents of gum, honey, frankincense, stacce, and turpentine and walnuts. Take double money in your hands, and the money that was returned in your sacks. Carry back with you, lest peradventure it is a mistake. And take your brother, and arise, go down to the man. And my God give you favor in the sight of man, and send you away your other brother, and Benjamin. And I accordingly am bereaved. And the men, having taken these presents and the double money, took in their hands also Benjamin. And they rose up and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And Joseph saw them, and his brother Benjamin, born of the same mother. And he said to the steward of the household, Bring the men into the house, and slay beasts, and make ready, for the men are to eat bread with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph said. And he brought the men into the house of Joseph. And the men, when they perceived that they were brought into the house of Joseph, said, We are brought in because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first, even in order to inform us again, and lay it to our charge, to take us for servants and our asses. And having approached the man who was over the house of Joseph, they spoke to him in the porch of the house, saying, We pray thee, sir, we came down at first to buy food. And it came to pass, when we came to unlade, and opened our sacks, there was also this money in each of his sack. And we have now brought back our money by weight in our hands. And we have brought other money with us to buy food, and we know not who put the money into our sacks. And he said to them, God deal mercifully with you. Be not afraid. Your God and the God of your fathers has given you treasures in your sack, and I have enough for your good money. And he brought singing out to them. And he brought water to wash their feet, and gave provision to their asses. And they prepared their gifts until Joseph came at noon, for they heard that he was going to dine there. And Joseph entered into the house, and they brought him the gifts which they had in their hands into the house, and they did him reverence, with their face to the ground. And he said to them, How are ye? And he said to them, Is your father the old man whom ye spoke well? Does he yet live? And they said, Thy servant our father is well, he is yet alive. And he said, Blessed be the man by God. And they bowed and did him reverence. And Joseph lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, born of the same mother. And he said, Is this your younger brother whom you spoke bringing to me? And he said, God have mercy on thee, my son. And Joseph was troubled, for his bowels yearned over his brother, and he sought to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. And he washed his face and came out and refrained himself, and said, Set on bread. And they set on bread, for him alone, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians feasting with him by themselves. For the Egyptians do not eat bread with the Hebrews, for it is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they set before him the firstborn according to his seniority, and the younger according to his youth. And the men looked with amazement, every one at his brother. And they took their portions from him to themselves. But Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as the portions of the others, and they drank and were filled with drink with him. 2 Samuel 17, Septuagint. And Achitophel said to Absalom, Let me now choose out for myself 12,000 men, and I will rise and follow after David this night. And I will come upon him, and when he is weary and weak-handed, and will strike him with terror, and all the people with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only of all, And I will bring back all the people to thee, as a bride returns to her husband. Only thou seekest the life of one man, and all the people shall have peace. And the saying was right in the eyes of Absalom, in the eyes of all the elders of Israel. And Absalom said, Call now also Cusi the Arachite, and let us hear what is in his mouth, even in his also. And Cusi went into Absalom, and Absalom spoke to him, saying, After this manner spoke Achitophel, Shall we do according to his word? But if not, do thou speak. And Cusi said to Absalom, This counsel which Achitophel has counseled, this one time is not good. And Cusi said, Thou knowest thy father and his men, that they are very mighty, and bitter in their spirit, as a bereaved bear in the field, and as a wild boar in the plain. And thy father is a man of war, and will not give the people rest. And behold, he is now hidden in one of the hills, or is in some other place. And it shall come to pass, when he falls upon them at the beginning, that someone will certainly hear, and say, There has been a slaughter among the people that follow after Absalom. Then even he that is strong, whose heart is as the heart of a lion, it shall utterly melt. For all Israel knows that thy father is mighty, and they that are with him are mighty men. And thus I have surely given counsel, that all Israel be generally gathered to thee, from Dan to Beersheba, as sand upon the seashore for multitude, that thy presence go in the midst of them. And we will come upon him in one of the palaces. There we shall find him, and we will encamp against him as the dew falls upon the earth, and we will not leave him and all his men so as much as one. And if he shall take refuge with his army in the city, then shall all Israel take ropes to that city, and we will draw it even into the river, that there may not be left there even a stone. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Cusi the Arachite is better than the counsel of Achitophel. For the Lord ordained the disconcert of the good counsel of Achitophel, that the Lord might bring all evil upon Absalom. And Cusi the Arachite said this to Zadok and Abiathar the priest. Thus and thus Achitophel counseled Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus I have counseled. Now send quickly and report to David, saying, Lodge not this night in Abiathar, in the wilderness. Go, even make haste, lest one swallow shall up the king, and all the people with him. And Jonathan and Archimaas stood by the well of Rogel, and the maidservant went and reported it to them. And they go and tell King David, that he may not be seen to enter into the city. But a young man saw them, and told Absalom, and the two went quickly and entered into the house of the man in Barim, and he was a well in his court, and they went down into it. And a woman took a covering, and spread it over the mouth of the well, and spread out ground corn upon it to dry, and the thing was not known. And the servants of Absalom came to the woman into the house, and said, Where are Achimaas and Jonathan? And the woman said to them, They are gone a little way beyond the water. And they sought and found them not, and returned to Jerusalem. And it came to pass, after they were gone, that there came up out of the pit, and went on their way, and reported to King David, and said to David, Arise ye, and go quickly over the water, for thus has Achitophel counseled concerning you. And David rose up, and all the people with him, and they passed over Jordan until the morning light, and there was not one missing, who did not pass over Jordan. And Achitophel saw that his counsel was not followed, and he saddled his ass, and rose, departed to his house, into his city, and he gave orders to his household, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. And David passed over that Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed over the Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. And Absalom appointed Amasai in the room of Joab over the host, and Amasai, the son of the man whose name was Jether of Jezreel, he went into Agagaiah, the daughter of Naas, the sister of Sarai, the mother of Joab. And all Israel and Absalom encamped in the land of Galaad. And it came to pass, when David came to Mahanaim, and Uzbi, the son of Naas, Rabath, and the sons of Ammon, and Machur, son of Alian, Lobadar, and Bezeli, and the Galadite, and Rogelim, brought 10 embroidered beds with double coverings, and 10 cauldrons, and earthenware, and wheat and barley, flour and meal, beans and pulse, and honey and butter, and sheep and cheeses of kine. And they brought them to David to his people with him to eat. For one said, The people is faint and hungry, thirsty in the wilderness. 2 Samuel 18, Septuagint. And David numbered the people with him, and set over them captains of thousands and captains of hundreds. And David sent away the people, and a third part under the hand of Joab, and the third part under the hand of Abessah, the son of Sariah, the brother of Joab, and the third part under the hand of Ethi, the Gittite. And David said to the people, Also will surely go out with you. And they said, Thou shalt not go out, for if we should indeed flee, they will not care for us. If half of us should die, they would not mind us, for thou art as 10,000 of us. And now it is well that thou shalt be to us an aid to help us in the city. And the king said to them, Whatsoever shall seem good in your eyes, I will do. And the king stood by the side of the gate, and all the people went out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king commanded Joab and Abessah and Ethi, saying, Spare for my sake the young man Absalom. For all the people heard the king charging all the commanders concerning Absalom. And all the people went out into the wood against Israel, and the battle of the wood was Ephraim. And the people of Israel fell down there before the servants of David, and there was a great slaughter in that day, even 20,000 men. And the battle there was scattered over the face of all the land, and the wood consumed more of the people than the sword consumed among the people in that day. And Absalom went to meet the servants of David, and Absalom was greatly mounted on his mule. And the mule came under a thick burrow of great oak, and his head was entangled in the oak, and he was suspended between the heaven and the earth, and the mule passed on from under him. And a man saw it and reported to Joab, and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanging in an oak. And Joab said to the man who reported to him, And behold, thou didst see him. Why didst thou not smite him there on the ground? And I would give thee 10 pieces of silver and a girdle. And the man said to Joab, Were I even to receive 1,000 shekels of silver, I would not lift my hand against the king's son. For it is our ears the king charged thee, and Abessah and Ethi, saying, Take care of the young man Absalom for me, so as to do no harm to his life, and nothing to the matter which was concealed from the king, and thou wilt set thyself against me. And Joab said, I will begin this. I will not thus remain with thee. And Joab took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them into the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive, in the heart of the oak. And the young men that bore Joab's armor compassed Absalom, and smote him and slew him. And Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing Israel. For Joab spared the people. And he took Absalom, and cast him into a great cavern in the wood, into a deep pit, and set him over a very great heap of stones, and all of Israel fled every man to his tent. Now Absalom, while yet alive, had taken and set up for himself the pillar near which he had taken, and set it up so as to have the pillar in the king's dale. For he said he had no son to keep his name in the remembrance, and he called the pillar Absalom's hand until this day. And Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, Let me run now, and carry glad tidings to the king, for the Lord has delivered him from the hands of his enemies. And Joab said to him, Thou shalt not be a messenger of glad tidings this day. Thou shalt be to them another day. But on this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. And Joab said to Chessi, Go, report to the king all that thou hast seen. And Chessi did obedience to Joab, and went out. And Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, Nay, let me also run after Chussi. And Joab said, Why wouldest thou run, my son? Attend thou that hast no tidings, for profit if thou go. And he said, Why should I not run? And Joab said to him, Run. And Ahimaaz ran along the way of Kechar, and outran Chussi. And David was sitting between the 2 gates, And the watchman went up on the top of the gate and the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, a man running alone before him. And the watchman cried out, and reported to the king. And the king said, If he be alone, there are good tidings in his mouth. And the man came and drew near. And the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman cried out at the gate, and said, And look, another man running alone. And the king said, He also brings glad tidings. And the watchman said, I see the running of the first, as the running of the Achimaas, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man, and will come to report glad tidings. And Achimaas cried out and said to the king, Peace. And he did obeisance to the king for his face to the ground, and said, Blessed be the Lord thy God, who has delivered up the men that have lifted up their hands against thy lord, the king. And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Achimaas said, I saw a great multitude at the time of Joab sending the king's servant and thy servant, and I knew not what was there. And the king said, Turn aside, stand still here. And he turned aside and stood. And behold, Cusi came up, and said to the king, Let my lord the king hear glad tidings, for the Lord has avenged thee this day upon them that arose up against thee. And the king said to Cusi, Is it well with the young man Absalom? And Cusi said, Let the enemies of my lord the king, and all whosoever have risen up against him for evil, be as that young man. And the king was troubled, and went to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And thus he said to his, as he went, My son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I have died for thee, even I had died for thee, Absalom, my son, my son.
Psalms 57, Septuagint. For the end, destroy not, by David, for a memorial when he fled from the presence of Saul to the cave. Have mercy upon me, O God, have mercy upon me, for my soul has trusted in thee, and in the shadow of thy wings will I hope until the iniquity have passed away. I will cry to God Most High, the God who has benefited me. Pause. He sent from heaven and saved me. He gave me reproach them that trampled on me. God has sent forth his mercy and his truth, and he has delivered my soul from the midst of lions' whelps. I lay down to sleep, though troubled. As for the sons of men, their teeth are arms and missile weapons, and their tongue a sharp sword. Be thou exalted, O God, above the heavens, and thy glory above the earth. They have prepared snares for my feet, and have bowed down my soul. They have dug a pit before my face, and fallen into themselves. Pause. My heart, O God, is ready. My heart is ready. I will sing, yea, will sing psalms. Awake, my glory, awake, psaltery and harp. I will awake early. O Lord, I will give thanks to thee among the nations. I will sing to thee among the Gentiles. For thy mercy has been magnified even to the heavens, and thy truth to the clouds. Be thou exalted, O God, above the heavens, and thy glory above all the earth.